They asked me once what I did in the war. I told them I built bridges. They nodded politely, probably thinking I meant metaphorical bridges, building connections between people, that sort of thing. They didn't understand that I meant real bridges, steel and wood and pontoons, bridges that had to go up under machine gun fire, bridges that men died building. My name is Carl Jensen, Staff Sergeant, 291st Engineer Combat Battalion, 1st Army. I'm from Minnesota, little town called Brainerd. Before the war, I worked construction with my old man. Built houses, barns, nothing special. When Pearl Harbor happened, I was 21 years old and figured the Army could use someone who knew which end of a hammer to hold. Turned out they could. They made me a combat engineer. Not the kind of engineer who designs things in an office. The kind who builds things while people are shooting at you. The kind who goes in first, before the infantry. Because someone's got to clear the mines and blow the obstacles and build the bridges so the tanks can cross. We landed at Normandy 3 days after D-Day, June 9th, 1944. Omaha Beach was still a mess, wrecked equipment everywhere, bodies washing up with the tide. But we didn't have time to think about that. The Army was pushing inland, and armies need bridges. Rivers don't stop flowing just because there's a war on. I spent 11 months in Europe, France, Belgium, Luxembourg, Germany. Every river we came to, every canal, every stream, the Germans had blown the bridges. That was their strategy. Slow us down, make us stop, make us vulnerable while we figured out how to cross. So we built, under artillery fire, under sniper fire, under mortar fire, sometimes at night with no lights because lights drew fire, sometimes in winter with the water so cold your hands stopped working after 5 minutes. We built because if we didn't, the war stopped. Simple as that. By the time Germany surrendered, I'd helped build 43 bridges, 43 crossings over 43 rivers whose names I can barely pronounce. But there's one bridge I remember better than all the others. March 7th, 1945, the bridge at Remagen. That's the one that still wakes me up at night. We weren't supposed to be at Remagen. That wasn't the plan. The plan was to cross the Rhine further north, near Wesel. Build pontoon bridges, coordinate with the British, do it all proper and organized. But war doesn't care about plans. Our battalion was pushing east with the 9th Armored Division, just trying to reach the Rhine. We came over a ridge on the afternoon of March 7th, and there it was, the Ludendorff Bridge, still standing, still intact. Every other bridge across the Rhine had been destroyed. The Germans had been blowing them for weeks as they retreated. But somehow, someone had screwed up, and this one was still there. Railroad bridge, big steel arch, stretching across the river like a gift from God. Lieutenant Fisher, our platoon leader, he just stared at it for a second. Then he grabbed the radio. "We've got a bridge." "Repeat, we have an intact bridge across the Rhine." The response came back fast. "Take it. Hold it. We'll send reinforcements." Easy to say when you're sitting in a command post miles away. The 9th Armored went first, infantry and tanks charging across while the Germans tried to blow the bridge. We could see the demolition charges, big ones, planted all over the structure. The Germans were trying to detonate them, but something wasn't working right. Maybe the charges got damaged. Maybe the wiring was bad. Maybe God decided to pick a side that day. Either way, the bridge didn't blow, but the Germans weren't done. They had artillery zeroed in on it. Machine gun nests on the far side. They knew what that bridge meant. If we held it, we had a crossing over the last natural barrier between us and Berlin. So they threw everything at it. We got the order to move up around 1700 hours. The infantry had secured the far side, barely, but they needed us to reinforce the bridge. The structure was damaged. Explosions had weakened it. German artillery was tearing chunks out of it. If it collapsed, the whole opportunity died with it. "All right, listen up." Fisher was shouting over the noise. "We need to shore up that bridge and get a pontoon backup built downstream. I need volunteers for the first team." Nobody volunteered. Nobody moved. We all just looked at that bridge, at the shells landing on it and around it, at the smoke and the fire. Fisher looked at me. "Jensen, you're up. Pick 5 men. Just like that. Pick 5 men to run across a bridge that's being shelled. Pick 5 men who might not make it to the other side." I picked Danny Kowalski from Chicago, Frank Ricci from New Jersey, James Jimmy Patterson from Tennessee, Robert Shaw from Texas, and Marcus Washington from Alabama. Good men, all of them. We loaded up the truck with timber supports, cables, tools, everything we'd need to reinforce the bridge structure. The plan was simple. Drive across fast, get to the far side, start working. Simple plans get people killed. We started across at 17:30 hours. I was driving, Kowalski in the passenger seat, the other 4 in the back with the equipment. The bridge was maybe 1,000 feet long. In peacetime, that's a minute's drive. Under fire, it's an eternity. The first 100 feet were okay. The bridge deck was intact, no major damage. I could see the river below through the railroad ties, the Rhine, dark and fast-moving. Beautiful in another life. Then the artillery found us. The first shell hit 50 feet ahead. The explosion lifted the truck, slammed it back down. My teeth cracked together. Kowalski was screaming something I couldn't hear over the ringing in my ears. "Keep going." That was Patterson pounding on the cab roof. "Don't stop. Go, go." I floored it. The truck lurched forward, engine screaming. Another shell hit behind us. Shrapnel pinged off the truck bed. The smell of cordite and hot metal filled the cab. We were halfway across when I saw the hole. German engineers had tried to blow the bridge earlier, and they'd partially succeeded. There was a 10-foot gap in the deck, spanned by a temporary plank the infantry had thrown down. One wooden plank, maybe a foot wide, over a 50-foot drop to the river. No way the truck would make it. "Out! Everybody out!" We bailed, grabbed what equipment we could carry, and ran. The bridge was shaking with each explosion. The steel groaned and screamed like a living thing. I could feel it swaying under my feet. Shaw went down first. We were running, and he just dropped. I didn't see what hit him. Shrapnel, probably. Or a rifle round from one of the German snipers. He hit the deck hard and didn't move. "Shaw!" Washington turned back for him. "Keep moving!" I was screaming it. "He's gone! Keep moving!" Washington hesitated. In that second of hesitation, another shell landed. Close. Too close. The blast wave picked Washington up and threw him sideways. He hit the bridge railing and went over. I saw him fall. Saw him hit the water. Saw the Rhine swallow him without a sound. 2 men gone in 30 seconds. The rest of us ran. Kowalski, Ricci, Patterson, and me. We ran through smoke and fire and falling steel. Patterson was crying as he ran, sobbing, gasping, but still moving. Kowalski's arm was bleeding, but he didn't slow down. We made it to the far side, collapsed behind a damaged pillbox, gasping for air. My hands were shaking so badly I couldn't hold my rifle. Fisher was there, along with a squad of infantry. They'd been watching from cover. "Shaw and Washington?" he asked. I shook my head. Fisher closed his eyes. "All right. We still need to reinforce this bridge. Jensen, can you work?" I looked at my hands, still shaking. Looked back at the bridge, at the smoke, at the place where Washington had gone over the railing. "Yeah," I said. "I can work." Because that's what you do. Men die, and you keep working. We worked on that bridge for 3 days straight. 72 hours of reinforcing steel, replacing deck sections, shoring up damaged supports, all while German artillery pounded us. They knew exactly where we were, and they never stopped shooting. More engineers arrived. The 51st Engineer Combat Battalion, the 291st other companies. By March 8th, we had hundreds of engineers working on and around that bridge, building, repairing, constructing pontoon bridges downstream as backup. Men died every day, every single day. I watched a shell land directly on a work crew reinforcing the South Tower. 7 men just gone, vaporized, nothing left but a crater and scattered tools. I watched a sniper kill Sergeant McGrath while he was surveying damage to the deck. Clean headshot. McGrath had 3 kids back in Ohio. I'd seen pictures. I watched the bridge sway and groan and threaten to collapse. Engineers would be working underneath in the superstructure, and you'd hear this metallic shriek and everyone would freeze, waiting, wondering if this was it. If the whole thing was about to come down and take us all with it. It never did. The bridge held. Barely, but it held. We built 2 pontoon bridges downstream as backup. Those were easier in some ways. We'd done it 100 times. Floating sections connected together, anchored to both banks. But the Rhine was fast and cold, and working in that water was brutal. I lost feeling in my feet on the second day. Just couldn't feel them anymore. Didn't matter. Had to keep working. Jimmy Patterson had a breakdown on the 3rd day. Just stopped working, sat down on the deck, and stared at nothing. Wouldn't respond when we talked to him. Wouldn't move. They had to carry him off. I never saw him again. Frank Ricci took shrapnel in the leg on March 9th. Bad wound, lots of blood. But he refused to be evacuated until his section was finished. Tied a tourniquet above the wound and kept working for another 4 hours. By the time the medics got to him, he'd lost so much blood he couldn't stand. He lived, though. Last I heard, he lost the leg, but he lived. Kowalski and I worked together for all 3 days. We didn't talk much. What was there to say? We just worked. Hammered bolts, welded supports, hauled materials. The bridge became our whole world. Everything else, home, family, peace, those were just concepts. Abstract ideas that didn't mean anything. There was only the bridge and the work and trying not to die. By March 10th, the Ludendorff Bridge was secure, reinforced, stable, and 5 pontoon bridges were operational nearby. The First Army was pouring across. Tanks, trucks, artillery, infantry. Thousands of men and tons of equipment flooding into Germany's heartland. We'd done it. We'd held the bridge. But 7 men from my company died doing it. 7 more wounded, badly enough to be sent home. And Shaw and Washington were still in the Rhine. March 17th, 1945. 10 days after we took the bridge. I was back at the battalion assembly area, finally getting some rest. We'd been pulled off the line for resupply and replacements. New engineers coming in, fresh-faced kids who hadn't built a bridge under fire yet. I was trying to sleep when I heard it, a rumble, deep and long, like thunder. Except it wasn't thunder. The Ludendorff Bridge had collapsed, just fell into the Rhine. The main span gave way, taking the towers with it. The whole massive structure, thousands of tons of steel, just dropped into the water. 28 engineers were on it when it fell. Men from the 291st and the 51st, doing maintenance and repairs. Most of them survived. The water was fast, but not that deep near the banks. They got pulled out, hypothermic and battered, but alive. 3 didn't make it. Swept away by the current or trapped under the debris. One of them was Danny Kowalski. When they told me, I didn't react at first, just sat there. Number. Kowalski had survived the initial crossing. Survived 3 days of constant shelling. Survived everything the Germans threw at us. And then the bridge killed him anyway. 10 days. We'd held it for 10 days. Long enough to get the First Army across. Long enough to change the course of the war. The bridge had done its job, but Kowalski was still dead. I went to the river that afternoon, stood on the bank and looked at the wreckage, twisted steel and broken concrete half submerged in the current. Men were already working to clear it, to salvage what they could. I thought about Shaw, about Washington, about Kowalski, about all the men who died building and holding that bridge. And I thought about the bridges still to come, because the war wasn't over. Germany hadn't surrendered yet. There would be more rivers, more bridges, more men dying to build them. I sat down on the bank and put my head in my hands. Didn't cry, couldn't cry anymore. Just sat there, feeling empty, hollowed out. Lieutenant Fisher found me there, sat down next to me without saying anything. We watched the river flow past, carrying pieces of the bridge away. It mattered, he said finally, what we did here. It shortened the war, saved lives in the long run. Doesn't feel like it saved lives. No, Fisher agreed. I don't suppose it does. We built a bridge that killed the men who built it. We built a bridge that got an army across a river it couldn't have crossed otherwise. The Germans killed those men. The war killed those men, not the bridge. I wanted to believe him, tried to believe him, but all I could see was Kowalski's face, grinning at me as we worked. Heard his voice. After the war, Jensen, I'm opening a bar in Chicago. You're invited to the grand opening. There wouldn't be a grand opening. Wouldn't be anything. Just another name on a casualty list. Another family getting a telegram. Another flag-draped coffin sent home. We sat there until dark. Then Fisher helped me up and we walked back to camp. The next morning, they gave us new orders. Another river, another bridge. We loaded the trucks and moved out, because that's what combat engineers do. We build, and we keep building, until the war ends or we die trying. The war in Europe ended on May 8th, 1945, VE Day. Germany surrendered. We'd won. I was in Bavaria when we got the news. We'd built our last bridge 2 days before, a small span over some creek whose name I never learned. When the announcement came, everyone celebrated. Men were cheering, firing rifles in the air, getting drunk on whatever they could find. I sat in a tent and stared at my hands. Couldn't make myself feel happy. Couldn't make myself feel anything. I came home in September 1945, sailed into New York Harbor, saw the Statue of Liberty, everything you see in the newsreels. My parents met me at the train station in Brainerd. My mother cried. My father shook my hand and told me he was proud. I went back to construction work, back to building houses and barns. Simple work, peaceful work, no one shooting at me, no shells falling. No bridges collapsing into rivers. But I couldn't do it. Every time I picked up a hammer, I thought about the bridge at Remagen. Every time I saw a river, I thought about Washington going over the railing. Every time I heard thunder, I thought about artillery. I'd wake up at night, hands reaching for tools that weren't there, hearing Fisher yelling orders that were 20 years old. My wife married her in 1948. She learned not to wake me suddenly, learned to sleep through the nights when I'd sit up, gasping, convinced I was back on that bridge. I tried different work, tried teaching, tried factory work, tried everything that wasn't construction. Nothing took, nothing fit. The man who came back from Europe wasn't the man who'd left Brainerd in 1943. I started drinking in the 50s. Not proud of it, but there it is. Drinking helped quiet the memories, helped me sleep, helped me forget, at least for a few hours, what it felt like to watch men die building something that would collapse anyway. My wife stuck with me through it. Don't know why, don't know what I did to deserve her patience. But she did. Got me to meetings, got me to talk to the VA, got me sober in 1962. I'm 70 years old now, haven't touched a drop in 13 years, haven't built anything more complicated than a bookshelf in 30 years, can't even look at bridges without my chest getting tight. I looked up the other survivors years ago, tried to find the men I'd served with. Patterson, the one who had the breakdown, he never came home right. In and out of hospitals for years. Died in 1958. Overdose, his sister told me. Accidental, they said. I'm not so sure. Ricci did okay. Lost his leg, but built a good life. Owns a hardware store in New Jersey. We exchange Christmas cards. Never talk about the war. Fisher stayed in the Army. Made it to colonel before he retired. Died in 1970. Heart attack. His widow invited me to the funeral. I couldn't go. Couldn't face it. The 291st Engineer Combat Battalion built over 300 bridges in Europe, cleared thousands of mines, blew countless obstacles, lost 143 men killed in action, another 400 wounded. We helped win the war. They gave us medals, told us we were heroes. But heroes don't wake up screaming. Heroes don't spend 30 years trying to forget. Heroes don't see the faces of dead men every time they close their eyes. We were just engineers, just men with tools and orders and too much work to do. We built bridges because armies needed them. We died building them because that's what war does. It takes everything you can build and makes you pay for it in blood. The bridge at Remagen stood for 10 days, long enough to change history, long enough to kill 11 good men. I've been back to Germany once, 1965. Wanted to see it, needed to see it for some reason. The bridge is gone, of course. Just the towers remain, standing on either bank like tombstones. I stood on the western bank and looked across the Rhine. Tried to remember what it felt like to be 23 years old and certain that the bridge mattered more than anything. Tried to remember believing that the sacrifice was worth it. Couldn't remember that feeling. Could only remember the fear, the noise, the weight of Kowalski's dog tags that someone handed me after they pulled his body from the river. They're in a box in my closet. His tags, Shaw's, Washington's. I was supposed to send them to the families. Never could. Seemed too final, too real. The war's been over for 30 years. We won. Defeated fascism. Saved the world. That's what they say. But I'm still building that bridge, still running across it under fire, still watching men fall, still trying to finish the job before everything collapses. We were combat engineers. We built the roads and bridges that armies used to win wars. But we never built a bridge back to who we were before. That bridge doesn't exist, can't be built. We crossed into war and we never found our way back across. Some rivers you can't bridge, some crossings you can't make. We're still on the far bank, still waiting, still working, still building bridges that lead nowhere but back to the water.